Hey cats, it's Ed, semi-pro Bud here. Today I've got a fine crop of pre-Christmas crackers for you to titillate and tantalise the toes. Maybe. What do you make of these new forthcoming running shoe releases? It's yay or nay time. Welcome back to the channel, guys, or if it's your first time here, guten Tag. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell below for notifications of when we roll out those new videos for you. You don't want to feel left out. It also helps the channel out too if you give this video a thumbs up like, but also share it with your running buddies. Merci beaucoup. Let's get straight into it, guys. 4 running shoes today that I may or may not pick up. I'm going to give you my reasoning behind my choices. It could be that another shoe tuber out there might just give them more justice, or it just might be a shoe that doesn't really appeal to me all that much. I might not be able to understand its facets right now. Otherwise, you know I like testing shoes. First up is the Reebok Energy X. I think the full title is in fact the Reebok FLOATRIDE Energy X, but you get my drift. This one looks set to drop in 2022 at some point. That seems like months away. And of course, it's going to feature carbon plate. I think it might be a part plate though. I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be through the whole of the midsole. I think one small gripe I have with the Energy 3 is the fact that at certain paces or over certain distances, it just felt a little bit too flexible. There was too much give to it. So this might solve the problem. Maybe Reebok were listening to my calls. I certainly think they've raised the stack of the shoe up here. There's definitely more foam than in the Energy 3. Although we do have to remember that the Energy 3 foam kind of cupped around the foot a little bit. So there's quite a lot of shoes do that. The foam looks absolutely humongous, but when you get it on foot, it's not actually that tall. I can't see the familiar outsole pattern that we found on the Energy 3 on the underside of the Energy X here, but you never know. Certainly a small nod to the Energy 3 though is in the eyelets on the Energy X. And the heel looks a little bit more like the Symmetros actually from Reebok. So a mishmash of lots of different profiles here going into one carbon plate shoe. And it'll be one of the first we've seen from Reebok. Zilch info in terms of weight, the stack height, though they have quoted a price of $170, which is actually fairly reasonable I suppose for a carbon plate shoe. That might be about £127 here in the UK if we convert that. I think it's got to be a yay. I've got to test out a carbon plate Reebok shoe if one materialises.
I'd be a fool not to.
I've just run too many miles in Reebok shoes not to give it a whirl when it finally arrives. So it could be a bit of a higher stack improved Energy 3. As such, that makes the Reebok FLOATRIDE Energy X a yay from me. Shoe number 2. You've all seen Stephen Curry flying in those 3-pointers just over and over again recently. No look 3-pointers. Who would have thought that would be a thing? Under Armour are hitting us with another flow shoe. This one's called the Curry Flow Go. Looks like a more knit type material here in the upper versus the mesh that we found on the Flow Velocity Wind. I'd be keen to know if the UA Map My Run features built into this shoe. I know a lot of people would probably go for the Flow Velocity Wind if that feature wasn't in there and the shoe was a little bit lighter. I think the upper on the Flow Velocity Wind wasn't ideal for everyone, and as such this could be a really good lighter entry into the Under Armour world. In a more traditional fit, I suppose. The flow material seems to work for Mr. Curry very, very well. And I really enjoyed my miles in it earlier this year. I urge you guys to pick up a discounted pair of the Flow Velocity Wind if you haven't tried it out already. I really like the Flow midsole and outsole because it's both things together. There's loads of discounts on that shoe at the moment, so there's no excuse. It's got a more rebound-like cushion than some of the spongy stuff that we see in other makes at the moment. And really durable outsole properties as well. I threw loads of things at that and it just kept on rolling. My one worry here is there's only a few eyelets on this new shoe and a runner's knot will be out of the question. Certainly looks quite close to the Flyknit from my beloved Zoomfly Flyknit from a few years back. What's with the small weird lace loops as well? Very strange. Not sure on this one, but that Flow midsole is still interesting to me. I think it's probably a nay for me on the Under Armour Curry Flow Go. Let me know if you're going to try and pick up a pair of shoes with that Flow midsole. I think it's a really good running midsole. For shoe 3 and 4, we got a couple of bangers from Saucony. I was very excited to see that there's an Endorphin Pro 3 coming, possibly in the early part of 2022. There's a complete refresh here, certainly in that upper midsole and outsole. The whole thing is just completely different. Looks like they're going to max out the shoe stack, because that's what everyone's doing right now. Quite a large increase on the previous version of the midsole. We see Saucony crank up that midsole stack in line with the Alphafly and the Adios Pro 2 to just under 40 millimeters. That's right, 40 millimeters. But they're still retaining the 8 millimeter drop from heel to toe. Upper material looks more like what we saw on the Endorphin Pro Plus, that recent all-white mesh shoe that they released. That was supposedly going to be very limited edition, but there's still pairs of it out there if you look around. So with that 4 millimeter increase in the heel stack comes apparently a drop in weight to 204 grams or 7.2 ounces. That's got to be down to the upper change, but also, thankfully, at last, they've changed the outsole. Only some blurry images here, but it does look as if they've changed it and switched it up. Appears to be a smoother material, perhaps a little bit like what we've seen in the recent Adios Pro 2. Certainly a lot less rubber, much thinner application than we had, and that was a big downfall, really, of the Endorphin Pro. Ground grip was just subpar. They've even got some exposed carbon plate sections here, because you know everybody really likes those. I guess it's good for the Han Solo enthusiasts out there. No confirmed price here. I did see something around $225. I would imagine it's going to be more expensive than the current Endorphin Pro 2. Maybe around about the 200 Earth credit price here in the UK. There's an outsole change. There's a little bit more stack. And the upper, well, I didn't try out the Pro Plus, so I think we'll say a yay for the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. Can't believe we're at a 3 already. How did that happen? Seems like it only came out last year. It did come out last year. Man, I'm getting old. Shoe 4. We're talking the Endorphin Speed 3. Seems like less of an update here in the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3. Certainly over the previous versions, there's not quite as much to talk about. Listed weight is higher than the 2, but only marginally. I don't think anyone's going to be able to tell. You'd have to have very sensitive feet, I reckon, to tell the difference between the two of these. There's like 5 grams or something. If you can tell the difference, then hats off to you. Again, the outsole updated here with thinner rubber pieces by the looks, although the images I saw are only low quality and leave a great deal to the imagination. Saucony suggests the nylon plate has been redesigned. Not sure exactly what winged means. Perhaps it's going to be something like we saw in the Skechers shoes. I think there was something like that plate in the Go Run Speed Elite. Or perhaps it could be something like the Hoka shoes, where you've got that winged sort of forked section, like a snake. It's very hard to say unless we get some more specifics on this one. It's all a little bit vague at the moment. Not quite as exciting as the Pro 3 update. I think there's a few more interesting things going on there. So for the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3, I think I'm going to give it a yay nay, somewhere in the middle. Like a maybe, I suppose, until I know a few more details. That's all 4 shoes in today's yay or nay. What do you make of them, guys? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. A quick musical interlude for you. I've got to be honest, it's been one of the toughest work weeks for a while. Some very late sort of days, very late finishes, 12-hour days. It's just been a bit rough. I know other people do that all the time, but going back to that type of operation is difficult really when you've been doing a lot of remote work, I suppose. So I felt pretty wiped out, washed out, and there's one track that's been really driving me forward and getting me to go out running after I've finished work, you know, late into the evening. And that's from Status Quo, their version of Bye Bye Johnny. The reason I love this track so much, it's just warts and all. There's these driving guitars on the verge of feedback. The drumming as well really helps to sort of pound and lay down the different accents, you know, on the different bits of the track. The bass line is really underrated as well. I think the bass player from Status Quo is just really underrated. Always does the thing that is needed rather than all this elaborate sort of stuff. The pace as well, this track, considering it was done back in the 70s or whatever, it's just wonderful. To think at one point that Radio 1, you know, a banned Status Quo or whatever it was from being broadcast because it was just too old hat. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, who makes these sort of decisions? Rough, raw, immediate rock and roll, you know, it's always going to be popular, it's always going to be there. So do go and check this one out, guys. Bye Bye Johnny by the Status Quo. It really is a great track if you're needing to get the adrenaline pumping a little bit. It doesn't let up, it's like a greyhound, you know, flying out the traps. Go and check it out. Thanks for sticking with me to the very end of the video. And I'd also like to say thanks for making this one of the best months for the channel. The views are just going through the roof and I really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, do grab some merchandise in time for Christmas. You know it makes sense. Also hit that subscribe button and the bell below for notifications of when we roll out those new videos for you. You can help us out too by giving this video a thumbs up like, but also sharing it with your running buddies. My name's EDDBUD and I'll be seeing you